This is #Gen Z, a podcast that explores Generation Z, who they are, how they're different from other generations, while also being an incredible blend of those who came before them. We explore what they think is cool, what moves them, and why they do what they do. I'm your host, Meghan Grace. Welcome back. It is wonderful to have you here, and we are diving into quite an interesting topic. And let's be real, AI isn't coming because it's already very much so here. And if you ask Gen Z, they're already using it in ways that are reshaping how we learn, create, work, and communicate. According to a recent report by the Morning Consult that was featured in PR Daily, nearly 1 in 3 Gen Zers say they've used AI to help with schoolwork, and even more are using tools like ChatGPT to brainstorm, build creative projects, and explore niche interests. Gen Z isn't afraid to engage with emerging technology, and they're shaping it in real time. But there's a little bit of nuance there. While Gen Z may be digital natives, that doesn't mean they're navigating this tech without questioning or concern. A study by Insight Higher Ed found that roughly 49% of Gen Z students say they're anxious about AI's long-term impact on their jobs and their thinking. And over half say schools should be required to teach AI literacy to prepare students for what's ahead. So today we're diving into that exact intersection, Gen Z, AI, and how they use these tools on purpose and not just out of habit. And there's no one truly better to have this conversation with than Dr. Claire Brady, educator, speaker, and AI realist, and a good friend of mine. As a seasoned executive consultant and national thought leader in AI adoption, Dr. Claire Brady specializes in helping organizations harness AI, not just to streamline operations, but to free up time for deeper, more meaningful human connection. Through her consulting firm, Glass Half Full Consulting, Claire helps organizations scale AI integration strategically and sustainably, enabling teams to amplify their impact while staying true to their core mission and values. The firm specializes in creating customized AI adoption roadmaps that align with organizational goals, ensuring technology serves as a catalyst for meaningful growth and enhanced human connection. Beyond her professional work, Claire is an active member of regional and national associations and serves on various community boards in Central Florida. She and her partner Ben and their son live in Orlando, where life is filled with Lego builds, Minecraft discussions, and Broadway show tunes. When she's not exploring new AI tools or traveling, she enjoys reading, great TV, and time with friends and family. And I'm lucky to know Claire as a thought partner and a collaborator, so I'm excited to get into this.
Hi there, I'm Peter Zollman. I'm a co-host of the Inside Job Boards and Recruitment Marketplaces podcast.
And I'm Stephen Rothberg, and I guess that makes me the other co-host.
Every other week, we're joined by guests from the world's leading job sites.
Together, we analyze news about general, niche, and aggregator job board and recruitment marketplaces sites.
Make sure you sign up and subscribe today.
Well, welcome to a friend, a collaborator, someone that I love spending time with and love learning with and bouncing ideas off of, an actual business partner of mine, which is a whole other thing, a whole other conversation. But Claire, welcome to the conversation.
Thank you so much for having me. It does kind of feel like a nice friend conveation. I should have a cup of coffee.
That's kind of like how I like this vibe to be. Like, we're learning, we're nerding out, we're having friendship time. And that's really the best kind of friends, in my opinion. But Claire, I know a ton about you because I spend a lot of time with you. Blessedly, I spend a lot of time with you. But some people might not that are listening to the podcast. So tell us a little bit about your story. Who are you? What is it that you do? And I think you have a really interesting journey of how you got to doing what you do. So tell us who you are, Claire.
Great. Well, hi, everyone. I'm Claire Brady. I just got married in the last few weeks, so I have a new last name, which is Claire Philbrook. So that's a big piece of information about me. I've been in higher ed as a higher ed professional for 25 years. I was a super involved first-generation college student at Michigan State University. And I was lucky to be mentored by professionals who saw something in me, even though I was pursuing a career in the U.S. Foreign Service and international relations. They really said to me, hey, I think you could be really successful as an educator, and in particular in higher education. And that really changed everything for me. So over time, over those 25 years, my work has really evolved from direct student support to executive leadership roles at community colleges and large universities. And I'm now a full-time consultant and coach. But what has stayed consistent is my belief in education as a force for transformation, especially outside of the classroom. So today I run my own consulting firm, Glass Half Full Consulting, and spend more than 5 minutes with me, and you'll know why that name really is very fitting for my firm. I also helped to launch the Association for Higher Education Consulting and Coaching, which is how Meghan and I are connected. And really, both of these endeavors have been a way to build community and create a space for professionals like me who are driven by mission, but also ready to really kind of reimagine the way that we work and the way that we educate. And I describe myself as an AI realist and an educational optimist. My consulting firm started out doing about half of our work in the area of artificial intelligence, in particular in higher education and nonprofit, a little bit in the for-profit world. And now it is almost 100% focused in the area of AI. I believe that AI has incredible potential, but it's not magic. It's just a tool, and we need to humanize it, not just implement it. And having lived through the evolution from, Web 1.0, social media, to now the AI era, all of this can be done through a really human-focused lens. And I think that given the fact that I'm an educator, given the fact that I've really adopted a lot of these technologies myself in my own life and work, I'm able to then go out and really help institutions and nonprofits kind of figure out how to harness, leverage, understand, and use these tools, hopefully for good.
Claire, I feel like especially 2-3 years ago when ChatGPT really jumped into the scene and everyone was like, what is happening? People freaked out, right? And they were very scared because dissonance is scary. And I think what's really cool about the work that you do is you bring that human approach to it. Because I think people are constantly scared that AI is going to replace their job.
Science fiction.
Yeah, it's gonna, and I'm kind of I'm weirdly down for the ride. But I think what makes your work so interesting, and I love being able to kind of sit back and watch it happen, is that you take that no, this is about humans actually being smarter and calming people down. And if there's anyone that I would trust to guide people into a scary future,
Thanks,
it would be you, because it might be different. You might have to think differently. But that's it's a lot of change management that you do as well.
It is. And it's also kind of hearts and minds, right?
Yeah.
I heard someone describe AI in the most interesting terms last week. They said, it depends on the lens that you're viewing it through. Is it that you're trying to resolve busy work? That you're trying to get help with your head work? So the stuff that kind of takes a lot of intellectual work, or is it your heart work? And oftentimes when you're trying to say to somebody, oh, you should use that for something related to heart work, is often when they kind of recoil, right?
Yeah.
Oftentimes kind of the entryway, gateway drug to AI is definitely you'll get time back to do the things that matter most to you.
I mean, you and I could honestly talk about this for an hour and a half, probably. We're going to try to keep it to 30. The ways that I've been using it to make decisions and to feed information into it, because shocking everyone, I have a lot of information in my brain just ping-ponging around, and it has helped me have way more clarity in my decisions and my thoughts, because I have a lot of them. Thank you, anxiety, for the extra thoughts that I have. Okay, Claire, I know that you and I nerd out about we found this cool tool. You are the queen of the AI tools in my mind. So what are some of your favorites? And if there are maybe some people that are hesitant or new to AI, what are the ones that you think everyone should be using?
Sure. So I kind of liken it to kitchen appliances, right? Sometimes you need a blender, sometimes you need a smoothie maker, sometimes you need something that's real fancy from, Williams-Sonoma or something, right? So really choosing the appropriate tool for the task. As I travel to about 30 university campuses a year, 90% of the people tell me they're exclusively using ChatGPT, which is fine, right? I use ChatGPT every single day too. It is rare, though, that they're using a second or a third tool on a regular basis. So for daily productivity, I really interchangeably use Claude, Gemini, and ChatGPT, and oftentimes I go to one over the other first, depending on what I'm trying to do. If I want to write something persuasive, I go right to Claude. If I want to write something kind of youthful and punchy and full of bullet points, I go to Gemini. If I'm looking for something kind of really long form that I can do a lot of editing to and can kind of take pieces and parcels of it and turn it into other content, I go to ChatGPT. I also use custom GPTs, have really become my go-to on a lot of projects with clients. And all of these tools, these large language models and tools like custom GPTs, they're really like creative co-pilots, right? They help me brainstorm, they help me write, they help me edit, even rehearse hard conversations or write business plans. But I'm still driving the tool, and then I'm selecting the one for the best outcome that I'm looking for. As it relates to research, which I do a lot in my work, I predominantly right now use Consensus and Perplexity. They've really been game changers for me in the sense that they blend AI with citations, and it really makes them useful for students as well as professionals and academics who need to do kind of quick research, reliable research, and you get a really great kind of dashboard that you can use. I also like the tools because sometimes I don't know exactly how to word what I'm looking for, and they'll suggest better prompts than what I'm probably using, which has helped me become a better prompter in the process. When it comes to managing meeting overload and kind of follow up with clients, I use Honeybook's AI note taker and Otter AI, depending on the vibe or the meeting. And they really allow me to be more fully present while capturing key takeaways and allowing me to follow up very quickly within usually an hour of the meeting with kind of what were the tasks that we assigned to each person. And I think that in particular, the work I do around project management, those tools really help me to kind of stay on track. And then oftentimes when I'm deep in a 40-page PDF or I'm skimming so many different news sources, I use tools like Claude and Flipboard, and not even an AI tool, a tool called PDF Gear, to help me digest faster and smarter, because I'm just on full information overload. And probably like you, Megan, in order to stay really up in my field, I need to be really in on everything related to AI. And if you're watching the news, there are constantly articles, constantly new research coming out. And so I can't absorb all of that or digest all of that naturally. I need tools, and I often use AI tools to help me do that.
Yeah, the digestion aspect of what AI can do is wild. Like when I tell you the things that I have had, I'm a big ChatGPT. Like I've given her 4 different names. She's a girl.
Wow.
She's a girl because obviously she is so helpful and like
Yep.
she just there. She's a support system. Not that men can't do that, but
She's
gender
so cool.
roles, right?
Yeah.
But the things that I've had it like help me do, and like I'm like read everything you possibly can. Like just a silly one. Like this weekend we were planting in our garden. We're in zone 7 because we're in Tennessee. And so I told them like we're planting on this day in zone 7. We get partial, and like it interviewed me first as a master gardener, and then I made it do deep research. It reviewed 45 different resources to tell me which flowers and herbs I needed based on my priorities and my lifestyle.
Wow. I did something similar. I'm on a podcast in a few weeks about first generation students.
Mm-hmm.
And I did a whole deep dive into a ton of research around first gen students after the pandemic. And then I uploaded everything into ChatGPT and asked for them to find me through lines, interesting examples, use cases of things that I could share. And it took minutes.
Yeah,
it's
the best. It's the best. Man. And so you kind of talked about, I love that framing of like the busy work, the head work, the heart work, I think is the framework you used. So I want to actually get into the heart work aspect of it, because I know the work that you do, and you offer a variety of trainings, a variety of services to organizational leaders. But you're a big advocate also of like the way that mental health can play a role in our lives, both as students, as employees, as employers. And the way technology is a part of that. So how do you think when we take this topic to the Gen Z population, where we know that there has been for the last 10 years a conversation about like a rise in mental health concerns, or in my opinion, a rise in diagnosis of mental health concerns. They were always there. How do you see these emerging technologies having this intersection with the Gen Z population, both positively and negatively, when we think about how AI and associated technologies are being more integrated into our lives?
So I think there's promise and there's peril with anything related to AI. So on the upside, Gen Z are just natural innovators, right? They've grown up with tech and they aren't afraid to experiment. I see students in particular using AI to like study better or explore their passions or build things that we never would have imagined at that age. They're really the first generation to truly grow up alongside AI, making them uniquely positioned to integrate the tools seamlessly into things like their workflows when they're in the workforce. But there's also a real tension. About half of Gen Z in a recent report reported anxiety about AI's impact on their thinking and on their job prospects. So we're all facing unprecedented digital exhaustion and information distortion. And those are two terms that I think you're going to start to see more and more in the mental health literature in particular. This algorithmic distortion that they're navigating, especially on social media for Gen Z, is just really overwhelming. But there's real promise in AI for mental health. Tools like journaling or emotional check-ins, those are really going to be positive. I think also this idea that you can be more proactive in seeking supports before things get to a critical or acute point. But there's a real risk in substituting connection for convenience. So Gen Z might be digital natives, but we know they crave authenticity. So research shows that even though 50% prefer human written content because it feels more real, if we aren't really careful, AI will chip away at that trust and the connection that we know that Gen Z value most. What I find most interesting is that despite being digital natives, and the fact that they crave authenticity more than previous generations, they really want relatable AI. So when AI is misused, that can really erode the authenticity and trust that we know Gen Z values so highly, which I then think in turn has an impact on psychological safety in the workplace, on just general well-being and mental health.
Yeah, I love that aspect of it's a tool. Like we've always been saying that about technology with Gen Z, like it's a tool. And for the longest time, people were like, it's the social media that's making all the young people anxious. And I'm like, no, not really. It's the dumpster fire of the world around us. But the social media is a tool that's allowing us to be like, what a dumpster fire.
Right.
But it's also conversely a tool that would, if we're using social media as kind of like it's AI's predecessor of impact, right? Social media gave people a lot of opportunity to connect, like in ways that were, I always think about like kind of the loner kid at school in the 80s. If you had a weird niche hobby and nobody else in your school of thousands of students had that hobby, you were just kind of a weird kid by yourself. Now on the internet, it's like, oh, look, there's other kids that have this same hobby that I do, and I can be connected with them. And I think that AI provides a different iteration of that. It can be so helpful, but to your point, the role that relationships play in that is so, like, I recently trained my AI to have a personality and to understand my personality, and not so that it's just mimicking me, but that it is a relationship, that it's giving me proper feedback for not changing who I am, but allowing it to be more of an interchange. And when I explained this to my husband, he was like, you need to get off, you need to sign off the internet, girlfriend. You need to get off this, you need to get off of Beyonce's internet.
Love it.
But I do think that there's such positive aspects of this, and then obviously things we have to watch out for, but that's nothing new. It's the double-edged sword of technology in general. Right. So you teach students and you empower students in some of the work that you do around engaging with AI from a space of agency and not necessarily that fear element of it that we kind of touched on. When you think of what an empowered AI user looks like, what does that look like for Gen Z, as opposed to just kind of passively consuming content that AI is giving us?
Well, I think you mentioned at the top of the podcast, ChatGPT was released over 2 years ago. And I feel like last year, 2023, moving into 2024 was really all about play. Just get out there and play with the tools, right? And what I've seen this real shift in 2025 is moving from play to purpose. This idea of really using these tools with intention, with a strategic mindset. So I'm really seeing that overall. But as it relates to Gen Z, I think empowerment starts with intentionality, knowing what you're using a tool for and why, rather than defaulting to it for everything. It's the difference between strategic collaboration with AI versus outsourcing your thinking entirely. So I frame AI like a co-pilot. It can help you navigate, suggest routes, manage details, but you're still driving the car. You decide the destination and you make the critical decisions along the way. So this matters because we're seeing a concerning trend. 39% of Gen Z workers report AI is reducing their interaction with coworkers. So maybe where they would have reached out to other folks in the past to seek either advice or guidance, they're moving to seeking that from an AI tool. So empowered use means getting the efficiency benefits without sacrificing the human connections that drive innovation and professional satisfaction, right? So the goal isn't just efficiency, it's connection. We need both. So empowered AI use for me means checking AI's output, adapting it, and infusing your own voice and values into the final result, making the technology serve your authentic purpose, not the other way around, and using it in such a way that is not diminishing your humanity and diminishing the human connections you have in the workplace, but how can you amplify it? And I've seen institutions and businesses create fun sandboxes in their Microsoft Teams product or in their Slack product, for example, where folks are sharing kind of AI wins and AI fails, which are hilarious, by the way, right? You should see some of my AI generated headshots. My family has a hysterical laughter over some of the ones that we get back. But this idea that you're innovating and you're exploring as part of a community, I think is really important to AI, being an empowering force, not a replacement for human connection.
I really appreciate that framing. And if anything, I just always want to share examples of how that has been relevant for me and how we can help listeners apply that concept. I do also a lot of project management, but I work with research teams. And so sometimes we're trying to be efficient, but research teams innately, what makes them effective is that we have to draw that interrelational expertise from people. And so something that I have done in the past to expedite things is okay, I'm going to generate something, and then I want your expertise to review this to see if this tool is accurate for what we're trying to do and has this saved you time. And one of the things we recently did was the psychographic analysis, one of my favorite things to do with connecting with the target audience. And then I floated it to our research team, and they're like, yes, and this also saved us a lot of time in developing our messaging around this and how we're going to engage stakeholders in the study. And I was like, bingo. Thank you. Example. And sometimes it's a matter of you don't remove the meeting, you change the purpose of the meeting after you've brought the output of AI to the meeting. And that's where you do the human work and again, eliciting that expertise. And I think that's, I love that there's ways that people are doing that, sharing their fails, sharing their wins, but also I think there's this, we're removing a little bit of the, what I think was for a while a stigma that AI helped me do this. Whereas I love that when you and I work together, we're AI helped me do this. And
we the rooftops, right?
Yeah, we do. And then we talk about how what is missing, what's right, what did we like, how can we use it again in a different iteration. And so I think it actually, once we take that stigma down, it allows for those conversations to occur. Okay. You've talked a lot about the authenticity of Gen Z. We know that is not even a buzzword. That's just a thing that they're about. Yeah. And I think that your concept of discernment and the work you do around figuring out what's real and not real is really important for us to lean into that conversation. When you think about content and just the vast amount of content that's being AI generated, good or bad, what advice do you have for Gen Zers who care a lot about authenticity and what is real and what is trustworthy, and navigating what's useful and where they might need to question some stuff. Like, how can we help young people, whether they're listening or we have them in our world that we want to impact them positively? How can we help them discern in a space that has just so much content that's AI generated?
Sure. Pulling from the entirety of the internet, right? So imagine if you were a grad student or a college student and you just were writing a paper about a topic you didn't know about, right? And you just put a prompt in to say ChatGPT and you get this great output. It looks really good on the surface, right? Because you don't know a lot about that topic. So one of the things that I do a lot with groups that I work with is I ask them, what do they know a lot about? And then we start quizzing the large language model, right? We say to it, what do you know about it? And oftentimes recently, I don't know why this is, but Dungeons and Dragons has come up a ton in sessions. And so we start asking it questions about Dungeons and Dragons, for example. And what we find is it's real Wikipedia level depth and breadth is what we discover. But then as you start to think about the tool, creating characters or creating narratives or creating, interesting story arcs, that's where the tools actually get really interesting and start to go in a lot of different directions. So sometimes it's not to get the general information. It might be how you take the general information that you already have in some form or fashion, and how do you use it or chain activities in other ways. I always start by asking 3 essential questions about any content that I encounter. And I'll be honest, I'm not sure. I hope that your listeners have heard these questions before, but often when I ask these questions to an audience, I get the most shocked looks on their faces. So these questions are, who made this? Who benefits from me believing it? And what's missing from this perspective? And those are really different ways to think about this kind of generated content that we game, right? So don't just aim to become good consumers of content. You really need to become really skilled editors of content. Recent research shows that only 52% of Gen Z trusts AI tools to help them make informed decisions, which tells me, even though that's a pretty big number, that they have some healthy skepticism, right? So build on that. Develop AI literacy like we built media or information literacy. Cross-check your sources, look for bias, question the convenience, and write inclusive prompts. Remember that AI tends to replicate existing patterns rather than challenging them. And fundamentally, the AI large language models like ChatGPT want to please you. So if something feels too perfectly aligned with what you already believe or that you've written in your prompt, that's your cue to honestly dig a lot deeper. Just because something sounds polished doesn't mean it's true or that it's aligned with your values. And this is especially important since many Gen Z are turning to AI for career and even mental health advice, like we've talked about. Trust your instincts when something doesn't feel authentic, even if you can't immediately explain why. And just a really quick story, Megan. I was visiting a campus recently, and I asked one of the tools to give me the 10 best places for me to visit on campus, the most interesting places. And it gave me 10. And so I presented them to the audience, and immediately the audience started to laugh. And it turns out at this particular institution, there's only 8 interesting things to do. So they borrowed from another institution about an hour away 2 additional places. One of them was secret tunnels, and another one was a Japanese garden. Neither of those 2 places exist on this campus, but since I asked the tool to find me 10, it found me the 8 that the rest of the audience would agree with, and then it made up 2 other ones. And so I wouldn't have, questioned that list. But as soon as it went up on the screen, the audience knew it and clocked it right away.
I think that there's what I'm hearing a good lesson is like, trust your instinct. If you know absolutely nothing, cross-reference.
Yes.
But I think a big piece of it is people don't know how to give feedback to AI.
No.
To call it on its nonsense. And when you call it on its nonsense, just like in humans, when you get called on a flaw or a mistake, you're more likely to learn from it the next time.
Yeah.
And like, there are times when I'm like, ChatGPT, you've lost your mind. Try again. Try it again. Or I think you're missing something, or let me provide you additional context that will help with that. Right. And how I would have fixed that query, I know you're using it for teaching purposes, is cite the Google reviews or link me to human feedback that you've received that why it was integrated into your list. I want to know from other people, but I don't want to go find all those reviews myself. So it's I love that there's ways that, again, we can, it's very meta, but like we can be training this tool to be more efficient and effective in generating what we need it to generate. Now I want to do all these fun things. I want to like do this for my alma mater when I get off this call, and like just all the fun places I go. Okay, so we've talked a lot about how we can directly to our Gen Z listeners and friends about how they can be more effective at using AI tools. Which sometimes I'm like, Gen Z is already so smart. Do they really need this one? I think this is just a crutch for us old people that need to catch up. But what can we do for those that are in older generations, or potentially those who want to engage Gen Z effectively, whether that's educators, employers, parents, family members? How can we best support Gen Z in an AI-driven world? And making sure that they're living obviously in an efficient manner, but they're still getting at that heart of being a human as well.
Sure. Well, the first thing I'd say is don't fear AI, engage with it alongside Gen Z, learn with them, ask some of the critical questions that they're asking. We need to be having conversations about ethics and boundaries, environmental impact, and creativity that acknowledge these tools are already embedded, but we can decide how and when to deploy them. So I would also encourage folks to model responsible use. Show that it's okay not to have all the answers, but it's powerful to ask the right questions. When nearly half of Gen Z job seekers feel their college degree is less relevant because of AI, we need to rethink the skills and mindsets that we're prioritizing. So instead of blanket prohibitions like just don't use it, ask questions like, how are you using it? And what's it helping you do better? What do you like about it? What do you not like about it? This generation doesn't expect perfection, but they do respect authenticity. So if we can reframe our fear or our concern or our anxiety as inquiry, we'll build the kind of partnerships that Gen Z needs to thrive in this moment. I think this shift will help us address the anxiety that recent research shows us that nearly half of Gen Z feel about the long-term impacts of their thinking and their job opportunities because of the growth of AI.
I'm so glad you brought up the concept of, let's just call it what it is, critical thinking, and that intersection with higher education. I think that, before we wrap it up, we have to call a spade, that like Gen Z has been questioning the relevance of higher education for the last 10 years, and higher ed is feeling those impacts. And when they're already concerned about getting a job or losing a job, and this is those that are already engaged in higher education, I have to wonder what the younger generations that are coming up behind them are thinking, because there isn't that promise that higher education has always had in the past, that like you're going to get a job after you leave here, when there's a lot of uncertainty.
I have no single employer that has said to me, I'm really worried about this person's critical thinking skills. Right?
Yeah.
They're like, I really need them to be AI literate. I need them to use it ethically. I need them to not put proprietary information in here. They're asking for a very specific technical skill set, but also an ethical mindset that our universities need to catch up to.
Yes. And I think the area that I want to point out is that for a long time, higher education has been very consumer product driven, of like, you come here, you get a degree, you're going to get a job. That's the product and services exchange and because it's quantifiable. And I think we're now to a point where higher education is going to have to get back to, in my opinion, some of the basics to weirdly enough, to navigate this AI world, is to teach people good old fashioned liberal education and the liberal arts style of inquiry. Everyone asks, they're like, how do you get such good output in your AI like things? And I was like, I was just taught how to ask questions and to do actual forms of informed inquiry is what it was. Yeah. It's deep inquiry, and inquiry in a lot of different types of in individual analysis and a lot of different types of the world and like different types of topics because of my liberal arts education. And so I'm really curious to see how this is going to challenge higher education and challenge employers and in general, of like, maybe we do need to go back a little bit to just teaching people the good old fashioned, I don't want to say critical thinking, but deep level
No.
thinking, just to philosophize, just to theorize about
Quality
things.
teaching and learning. Go
Yeah.
back to quality teaching and learning. If an AI tool is going to impact the quality of your teaching and learning, then you shouldn't be using it in a sense that it's going to negatively detract from it. But if
Yeah.
it could potentially amplify or help, then it's absolutely a needed tool.
Yes. And I think it's the elements of a liberal arts education, civil discourse, discernment, inquiry are all going to help people, I think, in my opinion, more in the job market than what we're turning out right now. But I could be blasphemizing higher education. So, Claire, you are a treasure trove of information around lots of things, but especially AI. Before I let you go, what is one of your favorite things about working with Gen Z? And I know that you kind of live with one and you interact with them as students and as young professionals, but what are some of your favorite things about this generation?
So many things. I think they might be my favorite generation. So, what energizes me most is how purpose driven they are. They want to make things better, not just keep things running. While AI is going to help us with efficiency, it's Gen Z's focus on impact and meaning that's going to determine whether these tools actually improve our world or just become profit centers, right? I love how Gen Z challenge authority in the best way. They ask, like, well, why do we do it like that? Instead of accepting established practices, especially around well-being and around balance and work-life integration, they question their questioning mindset is exactly what we need to ensure AI serves human flourishing. Gen Z are also funny, insightful, and refreshingly honest. Working with Gen Z keeps me humble, hopeful, and learning every day. So, despite facing unprecedented technological change and uncertainty, Gen Z maintains a level of ethical awareness that gives me confidence in the future. Their mix of healthy skepticism and bold creativity is honestly exactly what we need to shape AI and higher education and probably a lot of other fields into something better than what we have now and what we could even imagine.
Yes. And I feel like there's just Gen Z has this, people call it boldness, but it is this idea of like willingness to call it out and say it like it is. And some people are like, well, they just don't have the social skills to hold back their opinion. And I was like, or they're willing to be
norms, right?
They're willing to be a little bit vulnerable to say the uncomfortable thing.
Yeah.
And I think that's hard to kind of rewrite in our brains. But as you were like giving that description, I was like, Claire, are you talking about the students you work with or the young person that lives in your home? And I think it's
both, right? We have the best
both.
Conversations at dinner. We have a 13, almost 14-year-old, and he asks the best questions. And I'm like, yeah, why do we do it like that? Or that is bunk, He also is this incredible activist for the folks who don't have a voice and don't have a seat at the table. And I just love that too about this generation, right? And it's not in a pity-ish kind of way or an emotionally unintelligent way. It's really high order stuff, right? Empathy and curiosity and inquiry. I love that about this generation.
I also think that there's just this huge misconception around the idea that technology is making them less connected, when in reality, I think they're actually far more aware of some elements of the human experience than we give them credit for. And they just, I think they pick their battles on what they're willing to speak up about, and call out what is garbage. So I'll always support them in that, and I think they're great. They're just little peaches, and I love them. Claire, I know people are probably very interested in where they can keep up with you and follow along with your work. I know I could tell them they should follow you on LinkedIn because you are an absolute delight of a follow, but where else can people connect with you? And I'll be sure to put those in the show notes.
Sure. I have a website, drclairebrady.com. Love for folks to visit me. I blog a lot, so please follow my blog at least twice or 3 times a week, usually related to AI or kind of organizational leadership type stuff. Not always higher ed, but often higher ed related. And then, as you said, Megan, I love LinkedIn. I just think it's the best. I'm on Instagram and on Blue Sky too, but I think I'm most interesting on LinkedIn.
I love LinkedIn too. You and I have that in common. Well, Claire, thank you for joining us. I know I'm lucky that I get to spend lots of time with you, but I'm thankful that you spent a little time with our listeners today.
Well, I really appreciate it. I am a longtime listener, first-time caller. So thank you, Megan.
Oh my goodness. Love it. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Carmen Hudson. I'm the host of the Recruiting Book Club, and we're starting our second season. I'm so excited to bring to you another set of guests of recruiters who have written books. We are excited to have some very special guests this season. We've got Shally, we've got Craig Fisher, James Ellis, and quite a few other people that we're going to bring on board to tell us about what they wrote, why they wrote it, and maybe we'll veer off into a conversation about recruiting on all types of topics and subjects that happen in our industry. So I hope you can join us. I'm excited.
I mean, if you weren't already rethinking of how you use AI, I hope you are now. A huge thank you to my friend, Dr. Claire Brady, one of the truly most grounded and brilliant voices in this space, for joining me and helping us unpack what AI actually means for Gen Z and those of us trying to understand and support them. Here's a few key takeaways that I hope stick with you after this conversation. First, AI isn't the enemy. It's a tool. But like any tool, it needs thoughtful and intentional use. Claire reminded us that empowered users, especially Gen Z, don't just automate, they collaborate with AI. Discernment is everything. With so much content being AI generated, Claire's go-to questions are, who made this, who benefits from me believing this, and what's missing? These are must-haves for your digital toolkit. Next, we can't sacrifice connection for convenience. Yes, AI makes things faster, but Claire urged us not to let efficiency replace our very real, very human relationships, something that Gen Z, despite being digital natives, still deeply values. And finally, supporting Gen Z in the AI world starts with curiosity and not control. If you're an educator, a parent, guardian, employer, leader of any kind, really, ask how they're using these tools, what they're learning, and what matters most to them. This conversation was just the tip of the iceberg. Be sure to follow Claire on LinkedIn. She is truly a wonderful person to add to your LinkedIn network. Or check out her blogs. She provides a ton of great resources at drclairebrady.com. And it's really honestly worth your scroll. I'll be sure to include that in the show notes. As always, I'm always thankful that you tune in. If you think this conversation was great and there's someone else that needs to learn about it, be sure that you share it with a friend, colleague, whoever that might be, and let's keep the conversation going. Rating and reviewing wherever you listen to podcasts is a great way to help other people find #Gen Z, and that way they can learn along with us. I hope you've been enjoying this season so far. I've got some great conversations on the way. Subscribing really is the best way to make sure that you don't miss any new episodes when they become available. But if you think I'm missing something or there's a guest out there that you'd like me to feature, you can fill out the form on my website to share your thoughts. You can find that at meganmgrace.com/podcast. And if you want to stay connected with me, you can find me on LinkedIn and Instagram under the name Meghan M. Grace. This episode was edited by Leah Kramer, the Gen Zer behind the scenes who brings this podcast to life. Thank you again for stopping by. Let's continue this conversation and we'll chat soon.